Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to Organizing an ADHD Brain. I'm your host, Megs, a professional organizer and coach specializing in helping late diagnosed women with ADHD thrive. I'm here to help you embrace your neurodiversity and create a life that celebrates your unique way of thinking. New episodes drop every Monday and sometimes even twice a week if the topic gets particularly exciting. I started this podcast after my own ADHD diagnosis, feeling lost and alone. But as I learned more, I realized there were countless other women going through similar experiences. I wanted to create a space where we could support and learn from one another. As a professional organizer, I've discovered how clutter can often mirror the chaos in our minds. By decluttering our spaces, we can find the clarity and space in our lives we have been seeking. So join me on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Together, we'll uncover how ADHD can be super powerful and learn how to organize our lives in a way that works for us. Join me as we unleash our potential. Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome to the show. I cannot wait to meet you and talk to you. And you're in for a treat because this is one of my favorite episodes that I released earlier in the year, talking about how to get started with small, incremental organizing nuggets, 15 minutes or less, if you will. And it's kind of brilliant because I just launched a couple weeks ago an organizing challenge on social media where I'm challenging people to pick a space and organize it for 15 minutes. A lot of organizing starts with decluttering. I'm going to talk about that in the episode today. So if that's all you're doing, that's okay. That's all you're doing. One thing I'd love to normalize in this community is that celebrating the smallest wins is what really can propel us forward. I had a friend today who was sharing some daily wins, and she was saying they're not business related, but here's what I got done. And I responded to her, yeah, heck yes, celebrate those wins. Because if we just celebrate the big stuff that's happening, then we're going to wait for the big stuff to happen to celebrate. Why can't we celebrate the small wins? And if we can get in the habit of celebrating the teeny tiniest of wins, can't we be celebrating daily? Obviously, when you have a bigger win, it might feel even bigger, but that doesn't mean that those small wins don't matter, because it is those small wins. It's those small things that we're doing that add up to the big stuff. I had another friend who messaged me and she was showing me her laundry room and she was saying it's still cluttered, but look, I was able to get my laundry detergent to fit up on this shelf so I didn't have to keep it on top of the laundry machine anymore. And I'm like, there's no buts about it. You're making progress. That is progress. I used to beat myself up so much about not having things done. But why can't it be full of progress? Isn't life progress? Aren't we making progress every single day? So if we challenge ourselves to do the smallest of things, then we can progress in much bigger ways. This week is the second full week back to school for my girls. It is so weird not having them home during the day, and it's allowing me to revamp my schedule in a way that I really am focused on the things that I'm actually time blocking. I still get distracted. I still have to turn off my notifications so that things aren't dragging me in all kinds of different directions, but it's very nice not to be needed every 5 seconds for something. I miss them, and it allows me to put down my phone when they get home, and I don't feel like there's something on the other end pulling me away from them. It's really, really beautiful when I'm able to have this time to myself. If you're looking to binge listen to some of these podcast episodes, after this one, I highly recommend going to check out my schedule organizing podcast. I talk about setting up your priorities and thinking about the things you really want to get done in life so that you can allow yourself to put some blinders on when it comes to you flitting around your house trying to get everything done. So check that out. I have a free downloadable to-do list that I created for myself. I use it almost every day. I say almost because my ADHD brain thinks that I've got it all figured out and that the next time I go to plan my day, I don't need that. I did it yesterday. Okay. But here's your reminder that when you plan out your day and plan out the things that you want to get done, you will make progress in so many more ways than just trying to float around life, checking off a random to-do list at random times. All I'll say is that when I forget to do it or when I choose not to plan out my day is not as efficient or as effective as when I do plan it out and I set reminders and I really know what my priorities are for that day. I have some new episodes that are going to be launching next week, some solo episodes, some interviews. I'm really excited to introduce you to my new friends. And in addition to that, coaching is starting to open up for the fall season. So if you are interested in learning more about your brain and understand how you can live a life with less clutter, let me know and I'd love to help you. I do my calendar in the show notes below, so you are welcome to book a call with me and see if coaching is a good fit for you. I've got some exciting stuff happening in my Patreon account. Starting in September, I'm going to have some tiered memberships. One of them will include a Zoom meeting with me once a month where we'll have a Q&A and you can ask some burning questions about how to get and stay organized with ADHD. And if you're interested in building more of a community, come check it out. I'd love to answer any additional questions that you have. Like I said, that's starting in September. I'll have more information in my regular emails and additional information in next week's episode. Thank you for your continued support for the podcast. Now is a great time to go ahead and pause the show. And please go to Apple or Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts to leave a review for the show. Reviews help the podcast get seen and heard by people who have yet to discover what it is like organizing an ADHD brain. Thanks for tuning in. Let's jump right in. It's so cool that we're having this conversation now about so many of the things that we're still learning about when it comes to ADHD and our brains. One of the things I often hear when it comes to organizing is, well, ADHD people can't be organized, or maybe we don't have the tools with which to be organized, or we don't have executive functioning skills that help us get in the space to be organized, and so on and so on and so on. So I am a part of NAPO, and I just recently went to the conference, and NAPO stands for the National Association of Productivity and Organization for Professionals. I met some amazing women there, but guess what? Oh, and men. And there were so many people with ADHD who are also professional organizers. And I absolutely love that. What I'm finding is that I keep running into people that are really good at what they do in these specific niches. And there's a reason why they're there. Can you organize on your own? Yes. And I'm going to teach you some tools that you can take with you today. But there's also a reason why you can hire a professional organizer. Maybe it's that you don't have a ton of time, you have kids, you're working a full-time job, you've got dogs to take care of, a husband or a wife, or you just want to take a darn bath. There's a reason why there's professional organizers out there, and it's because they can give you a head start. And whether you work with them monthly or once a week or, I don't know, once every couple of months, they're there for you to guide you along the way in decluttering your space and coming up with systems that make your life easier. Did you know it saves you a ton of money too? Okay, I might be trying to convince you. You don't have to hire me though. Anything that can make your life easier, I am an advocate for, because I can't tell you how much money you can save when you know where things are. If you've got a lot of stuff, there's probably a good chance that you know where most of your stuff is. Even if there's a pile of paperwork downstairs in the basement, you haven't looked at it in years, you can pretty collectively understand what's in that pile of paperwork. But what if you go and you sort through it and the thing you thought was there all along is not there? You've kept it in your brain that it's been there this entire time, but now it's not there. What do? You get so frustrated with yourself, because I know that I did. We have a house my grandfather bought in 1968. And then when he passed away, my parents inherited the home and we moved in 1994. Originally, the idea was, okay, let's go through grandpa's stuff and let's figure out where everything goes. That never actually happened. So all of the stuff from my parents moving 18 or 19 times in the military then accumulated on top of my grandfather's things. Well, when we moved in there, I was only 8 years old. And so that was just normal to me. I didn't know another way of living because, I trust the adults to make the decisions in the household. And let me be very clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the truth is, it's because there's never been a course on how to get rid of stuff as you're accumulating stuff. And what do you do with all of your parents and grandparents' things once they pass away? Yes, there are courses now, but bear with me. I never took a course on that when I was a kid. Growing up, I had this room that was full of stuff. I had collections. I used to sew my doll clothes from my American Girl dolls. I had my American Girl dolls. I collected little glass figurines. My room was so colorful. I used to cut out magazines and I would paste them all over my wall. I had a collection of monkeys hanging from my canopy bed. And I had so much stuff, I didn't know what to do with it. So when my mom would ask me to clean my room or yell at me to clean my room, let's be honest, I would put stuff away. I would hide it. Well, where does it go? Okay, in a drawer. But nothing had a place. Aside from my glass figurines or this or that, most things just simply ended up in a drawer, stuffed away so that I would never know where to find it again because it wasn't necessarily in the spot that I always put it, which was out in the open for me to see literally everything that I could have ever owned. This is super fast forward. When my husband and I ended up moving in together, this was before we got married, we were living together and we both had been living on our own for a good amount of time. So we had dishes and we had silverware and we had stuff upon stuff, but we didn't do anything but simply combine things. We didn't get rid of anything. It wasn't until about 7 years ago that I started selling things on Facebook Marketplace. So thank you, Facebook Marketplace. Big fan. And on Facebook Marketplace, I found that, okay, I can make money from my stuff. So that gave me some good incentive to let go. But then I started attaching and monetizing everything in my head. That was actually a roadblock. I'll talk a little bit about that further on the episode on how I moved past that quite a bit. Now, in addition to that, I thought that I was getting rid of stuff at a rate that I just didn't have a lot. But it wasn't until we went to sell our house and we had decluttered so much. We didn't get rid of anything. Well, we got rid of a lot as far as, selling things before we moved, but most of the stuff we just packed up. And as we were packing up, I took a bunch of pictures down. I took a bunch of decor and kind of hid it in the boxes. And when we posted the pictures of our house online, I was so proud because we had made the video ourselves. My husband was a real estate agent at that time. And I remember one of my friends saying to me and commenting, wow, I'm so impressed with how decluttered it looks. You really got rid of a lot of stuff. And I was like, what? I seriously had no idea that I had that much stuff. I just didn't. And I also just assumed that everyone else had way more stuff than me, especially based on where I grew up. It didn't feel like a thing to me. Now, did it overwhelm me? Yeah, not necessarily the decor that I had, but more the amount of clothes that I had or shoes that I hadn't worn or crafts that I had driven across the country with me and then decided never to use anymore. Anyone a scrapbooker? Scrapbooking is really awesome. But who has time for that anymore? So I had stickers and papers and you name it. I probably brought it with me from the East Coast out to Colorado. Anyways, my friend saying that was a turning point for me. She wasn't trying to insult and she wasn't trying to make me feel bad, but it made me feel awful because I thought I was doing a really great job. And in hindsight, I was, absolutely. When we moved into our new house and we started unpacking things and making our new house a home, I realized there was still a lot of stuff that we really just didn't need. And throughout 2020 and beyond, I continued to sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace. But if you've ever done that before, it takes a lot of time. You got to take pictures, you've got to take measurements, then you need to do research on what things are going for. You've got to be realistic about your expectations and the negotiations that you make with people. It's not just about posting it and being like, pay me money for this. That would be great. It's not as simple as that because then you have to respond to people. You have to continue to build a rapport with them and you've got to have a profile where people trust you. You've got to understand what's a scam and what's not a scam and so on and so on. It becomes a priority in your life when you are selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace. But I did it, and I did it hardcore. I was working in the corporate world at the time too. So when you're working 40 to 60 hours a week, and at that point I had 2 young babies and my husband, and we're trying to build our lives in our new house. We had to get landscaping done. We had to put wall coverings on the wall, so on and so on. I would only be able to declutter here and there at certain points in my life. But I made a lot of progress. Fast forward, I left the corporate world. And right before I did, there was 1 week that I had taken off in PTO where I really decluttered hard. Another 3 weeks, I actually traveled back to where my parents are and I helped them declutter. We got rid of 8 to 10 bags of donations where a truck just came along and picked them up one morning. And that was incredible. I had no intentions of going into the professional organizing world. I wasn't even sure that I wanted to leave the corporate world at that point in time. But as I was working with a career coach around this time, we started talking about what I really wanted to do. And I thought about interior design. I've always been fascinated with how things look and making your home just feel like you, with color and vibrance and excitement. And I wanted to teach people how much they no longer needed in their life. So I left the corporate world and I decided that I wanted to be a professional organizer. And I thought that I could go into spaces and create Pinterest looking spaces. If you don't know what I mean, look up organizing on Pinterest and it'll come up with all of these perfect products you can buy to put all of your stuff in the perfect places so that you'll never lose anything again. I started to tackle my own home. That's what I did first. I started reading books upon books and trying to figure out, what am I missing? What is going on here that I can't quite grasp keeping my own home organized? Now, it was fairly organized. I had gotten rid of a ton of stuff. Like I said, I sold a bunch of stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and I still had so much stuff. Oh my gosh. Like, what was wrong with me? Nothing was wrong with me. Okay. I want to point that out up front. If you've got a lot of stuff, there's nothing wrong with you. A lot of the times we just don't have time. When I left the corporate world, now I had my entire day free. Obviously, I wanted to start my own business, but I also wanted to make sure that I could do this for myself. One of the books that I read was called Decluttering at the Speed of Life. I highly recommend it, and I'll post it in the show notes below. I learned a lot from the woman who wrote this book. One of the things being that not everything that left my home needed to be sold. I don't know why I needed to hear it from someone else. It was if I was so attached to the fact that my things were worth money that I didn't even think about another way. And when I read about letting go without having to worry about that other stuff, it just made so much more sense to me. I tackled my home in a way that not a lot of us are able to do. And I didn't do it with the tips and the tricks and the tools that I'm going to teach you today. Because what I did is I was on a time crunch. It almost felt like I had to have my home fully organized before I started my own professional organizing business. I had done a lot. I had learned a lot. And I had a lot to do. So I went through each room. I decluttered. I came up with spaces for everything. I made multiple trips to any donation center. I tried to find donation centers that would support good causes, so it made me feel even better about giving things away. I even donated things to our site that you could give away for free in my hometown. It felt good. It felt really good. One thing that I did was try to organize my craft closet, and I dedicated an entire day to it. I emptied everything out. I color coded everything. My colored pencils were rainbows and my markers were rainbows. The crayons were rainbows. Each and everything had its own perfect spot. I even put together little care packages for people in my area, like coloring books and crayons and colored pencils that they could use for kids that are homeschooling. I put everything back. It looked really beautiful. But the mistake that I made is that I didn't go in there and assign places for everything. So guess what? I had to do it over again. This ties back into time management, I promise. So I did it again. I emptied everything out. I got rid of more and then I put it all back. And then months later, actually a couple months ago, I looked at this craft closet again. And after doing so much work for my clients and for myself, I realized I still haven't gotten rid of enough. And so here I am. I have decluttered this craft closet now 2 to 3 times, trying to come up with a perfect solution so that it can stay fairly organized, right? Where things have a place. And finally, I realized it was just because I didn't get rid of enough. Having less, that you have less decisions to make on all of the stuff in front of you. And when you have 2 kids going in there, 5 and 7 are my kids' ages now, they don't know where things go. Well, my 7-year-old can read, but my 5-year-old is still working on that. And so when they go in there, they don't necessarily read labels. They're not going in there to find the perfect spot. They're simply just going in there and putting things where they fit because that's what they know to do. So there were a lot of things that I did not correctly here. My learning and my mistakes get to benefit my clients because I can teach them how you don't have to do this all at once. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you go in and organize a space. In fact, it can be done very simply and without overwhelming our brain to the point that we don't ever get to organizing a space in general. I was talking to another one of my clients the other day, and she said the phrase, well, once I get organized, well, I'll tell you what, I don't think that there's ever a point at which you get organized. You make a decision to be more organized, and then you start to adopt the traits and habits or routines around what that actually looks like. And so let me talk to you a little bit about how I coach my clients or how I would coach you on getting to a place where you could have a more organized home. It doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect. It does not mean that it's going to look like Pinterest, at least right away, because if you have a lot of stuff, you're not going to buy containers for all of that stuff. The first step of getting organized is decluttering, which is a whole another step in itself. And decluttering means you have to make some decisions on the stuff that you have and letting it go so that you can live with the stuff that's going to elevate your life now and not just in case later. As far as time management goes, oftentimes people with ADHD and myself, we have executive function issues, which means that I'll get up in the morning sometimes and I've got so many things going on in my brain. If I don't sit down and plan out my day and really time box and figure out what I'm going to be able to achieve in the day, my brain will continue to run and get all of these ideas. And I will just continue to just do tasks around the house until I actually sit down and have a plan of action. Executive function, I have a bunch of articles below just on understanding your brain in a different way. There's a couple different websites that I would recommend. One of them is Attitude Magazine. It's ADD Attitude, right? Get it? ADD. Okay. But talking about executive function, I think is really important because there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain just doesn't give you the skills that neurotypical people have when it comes to executive function. I will even tell you while I'm recording this podcast, I'm going in so many different ways. I have to have a timeline in front of me. And even planning out that timeline was so overwhelming to me. I didn't want to do it. I just want to talk about the stuff. But I also want to do it in a way that it's easy to follow and it makes sense so that you can start to implement some of these things. So executive function, we can also be time blind and we have trouble balancing tasks. And what that means for me or for my clients sometimes too, is that if you look at a space that has a lot of stuff in it and not all of that stuff has a place to go, it looks very overwhelming. And most of the people that I work with, most of the people that I talk to say, I just don't know where to start. And that is the trouble we have sometimes. We can see an end result. We know what that end result looks like. We have a solution. We've been there before. We can imagine it. It feels so good to imagine it, except that all of the little teeny tiny itty bitty steps to get there feel very overwhelming until we start to actually break it down into those teeny weeny, itty bitty steps. Obviously, you can hire a professional organizer. Do it. Highly recommend it. Also, another way out is to give yourself the option to be a more organized person and then create a routine around it, not a habit, because apparently habits are things that neurotypical people can just do without even thinking about it. I still hate to brush my teeth at night, but I know I have to do it because I don't necessarily want my teeth to rot out of my face when I'm in my 40s. So I do it painfully. But what I also know is that other people don't have that ridiculousness hanging over them to complete a task that you've been practicing your entire darn life. Something that I have incorporated when I brush my teeth is creating a routine and a trigger that when I'm brushing my teeth, my routine now is to also clean up my sink area and to put things away, like putting away my face stuff and putting away the toothpaste, putting away this and that. And that is the kind of idea I want you to start to create around being more organized. Another thing that's prevented me from organizing in the past is my clients have said, this is just so overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. That speaks to me because when I think of something that I want to do for my business or maybe for my kids, or even if it's learning a new piece of technology, the thought of starting it is overwhelming to me because I know I'm not going to be good at it right away. I wouldn't know all of these little tips and tricks and things that could help me be the best possible version of myself when using this tool. I want to be good at it right away. And I know that starting means that I'm not going to be. That serves as a roadblock for me. I think this can tie into executive function too, because I can't get myself to do the thing that I know I want to do and I know could help me make my life better. That's the thing. All of these things that we're holding ourselves back from doing is going to elevate our lives. Having less means that there's less going on around you, which means that there's less going on in here too. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I start to look around and I'm like, does my brain feel like what I'm seeing around me? And 9 times out of 10, the correlation is uncanny. Things are in disarray. Maybe I didn't do the dishes the night before when normally nighttime begging is so much nicer. And that correlation is so incredible. Look, I could go on and on about all the reasons why we're not organized. There's so many different things because while I can organize a space, there's so many other things I would love to organize that I'm just not great at. So I'd like to hire other people to do it for me. Or perhaps listen to a podcast that could help guide me along the way. So the solutions I want to give to you today, if you want to learn how to get more organized yourself in your space, is to start small as you possibly can. Pick a time that works for you. Pick a time frame, I should say. 5, 10, 15 minutes. You're going to do this once a day. I'm going to give you all the steps here. You're going to pick the amount of time that you're going to do it for. Once you have that, I want you to think about what time of day is going to be the most convenient for you to dedicate this time block to. Is it going to be in the morning when you first get up and the kids aren't up yet? Is it going to be in the evening after the kids go to bed? I know that in the evening, I just want to get into bed. So that's not going to be the best time for me. The morning is the best time for me because I have time to think before my children get up. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day, so I'm not telling you have to do it. I'm just saying it's a great place to start your day. You want to start to think clearly. Is it lunchtime? Is it while your kids are eating lunch? Maybe they're still home or maybe they're off at school and maybe you have set a reminder somewhere to tell you that now is the time to do it, which leads me to my third step. Once you have picked a time, amount of time, and then picked a time of day, now you're going to set a reminder. What have you committed to? Have you committed to doing this in the morning when you first wake up, mid-afternoon, evening, middle of the night? I don't know who you are, what your life is like. You do you, right? Now you're going to set a reminder. You set a reminder on Alexa. Just make sure you don't do it for 5 times a day. I did that. And now I don't know how to turn all of the reminders off on Alexa. She is really annoying. And sometimes my Emotions get the best of me when I'm trying to turn her off. But I digress because I want to focus on organizing. And now you're going to set a reminder. You can set a reminder on your phone. Just set a recurring reminder. Say, hey, Siri, can you set a reminder for me at 7 a.m. every single day to declutter a space for 15 minutes?
Okay, I added that. Tomorrow, 7 a.m.
That's cool. Okay, so I didn't even think she was going to do it, but she literally just did it for me. Now, every day at 7 a.m., Siri is going to remind me that I'm going to go declutter a space. But Megan, what does that mean? Okay, so this is where it feels really good. But this is step 4. You're going to find a box. You're going to put it at your back door, in your garage, at your front door, wherever it could go that it's out of the way. And that's going to be your donation box. You're going to put it somewhere, write donations on it. You can buy a box. You can use a plastic box. You can use the Amazon box that was just delivered. I talked to someone the other day and she said that every time an Amazon box gets delivered to the house, it does not leave unless it has something in it. She makes it purposeful that things go in that box and then they leave the home. I think that's brilliant. And step 5 is now you're going to figure out which space you're going to declutter. You can start with a drawer. You can start with a cabinet. You can start with one corner of a space. Remember that you have this 15, 10, or 5-minute increments to work within. The cool thing about it is that once it's over, you don't have to do anything else. That's it. Because the point is that I want you to see how much you can get done in that little amount of time. Now, you are going to get more done if you dedicate 15 minutes versus 5 minutes. But the point here is to not get overwhelmed. And what I always tell myself is, gosh, I can do anything for 5 minutes, anything within reason. But anything that I put my mind to and something that I want to achieve in my life, I can do in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I'm going to link a video in my YouTube that shows me decluttering this office so that I could record my podcast episode in here today. We recently had family staying with us, and so the sheets were still on the bed back here, and I just wanted to show you everything that I could get done in that short amount of time. It actually took me 10 minutes, even though I set a timer for 15 minutes. So what does decluttering a space actually look like? I can do a longer episode on this, but here are the basic tools you're going to work with. Is you're going to look at the space that maybe it frustrates you the most, maybe it frustrates you the least, but regardless, pick a space that's relatively easy. For example, you start with a drawer. You're going to take everything from that drawer and you're going to put it on your counter. Now, if your counters are cluttered, then maybe you consider decluttering the counter first. Regardless, you want to take everything from the space that you're in and you're going to take it out. Now, if it's a cabinet or a drawer, it's taking out the contents. But if you're on the counter, I want you to draw an invisible line or maybe even a real line on the space that you're actually going to work within. You're going to set blinders on yourself. You're going to put these little blinders on and you're not going to look at anything else. You're only going to focus on this space. The point of it is to be able to declutter the space so that you can see what's in front of you and see what you can achieve by simply dedicating a short amount of time to it. As you start to go through things, you're going to ask yourself, is this something that has a space already? Do you have a specific place you keep scissors and that's what you found on the counter? Do you have a specific space where you keep food? Put that where it goes. Now, there could be the case where you're still overwhelmed by everything else in the other area. Come back to the first area. Do not let yourself be distracted by other areas. It's so important that you focus on the task at hand. As you continue to work through things, ask yourself, what's trash? Maybe you just look at what's trash and throw that out first. If it's food, what's expired? Let that be a really great reason to get it out of your house. What if you have a deck of cards and all of the games in your house are all over the place? Where do you want to be able to keep the games? And that's where they start to accumulate. Go put it there. How about candy from a birthday party or birthday bag? You decide that, gosh, my kids already have enough candy and I don't want this in my house. You throw it away. Or maybe it is too painful to throw something away, so you put it in the donation box because they'll find use for it. I want to know what else you're struggling with. So let me know, and I will give you the tips and tricks and tools to help you let go of more. Something that helps me a lot, I've been practicing this a lot too, is I see that when I have less, it takes so much pressure off my back. There's so much that I don't have to keep track of anymore because there's so much that I don't need. As humans, we really don't need a lot. I'm not here to preach a minimalist journey to you. I'm here to teach you that you can absolutely be organized as a person with ADHD if you break it down into the smallest tasks imaginable. One thing that helps me with my time management is I get up at 5 a.m. every single day. And I'm going to take that back a little bit because I'm still a human. We had a death in the family this week, and it's been awful. Just awful. Gut-wrenching, heartbreaking. Loss is. Grief is. And I thought I was going to be able to carry on with life like normal. And I have not been able to. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of stuff that happens with grief. And guess what? I have been allowing myself to sleep in. I don't even feel remotely guilty about it. And something I've noticed is that my days don't get planned the way that I've been effective at planning them in the past. So I'm really excited to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I'm excited because I know what it does for me and my brain and the things that I can get done during the day to support myself and my kids and our future. I wake up at 5 a.m. and I have a template. It's actually a free download on my website that I always have linked in the show notes below. And it is a daily planner. I do it every single day. And I write down my priorities at the top. I have 4. So I write down my husband, I write down my girls, I write down my business, and I write down myself. And then each of my to-dos, I have 6 to-dos that I complete every day. And I don't write things down like make the girls' lunches for school. That's not something I write down. It's just something that we do because we're in a routine doing it. What I do write down is things I'd like to get done during the day. Things that are high priority for me to check off my to-do list. I write them down and I have them aligned with my priorities. Then I'll put them in my calendar to make sure that I have the time to do those things. And if there's something that just doesn't align with my priorities, I'm allowed to set boundaries around that and put it to the next day. So check it out, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, let me know. I'd love to see if I can modify it in a better way, right? Multiple brains come up with great ideas if we put them together. And then if it helps, I'd love to know that too. Check it out. Like I said, it's free. You can go ahead and print it out. I started this business because I had this idea that everything in my house could look perfect and everything in my house would have the perfect organizing product that I could put my perfect towels in. It wasn't as if I wanted to live this perfect life. I just knew that I was drowning in so much stuff. I wanted a solution. And I thought that the solution was perfection. But the solution really is making these tiny, incremental, itty-bitty steps on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, they add up to this monumentous change that you could have never imagined making in your life. I will post this on YouTube, and in the back, I have these 2 hutches here. And we bought them not to put stuff in, but because we really liked the way they looked. And one thing I always wanted was a guest room where people could unpack and actually put their stuff away, put their suitcases away so that they could feel like they were at home and not living out of their suitcases. So we have 2 drawers on each side and they're both empty. And there's stuff in the cabinets here because it just made sense for us to put things in there. They have a space and they're not full. I don't think I ever would have been able to say that 8 years ago or when I was in high school. No, if there was a space, I would fill it up because it was there for me to fill it up. I feel so good opening those cabinets now because if there's something in there that I need to find, I can open it really quickly to see if that thing is in there or not. I also have a space for things in there. So most of the time, I just go to where I already know the thing is because I have designated spaces for things. Is my life with ADHD still hard? Certainly. Does it still get messy? Yeah, I have kids and I want them to live a kid life. But when I have less, there's less for me to put away. I have eureka moments all the darn time when it comes to organizing because I see the effect that it has on my life. And people don't organize their homes to be perfect. They don't organize their homes to never be messy. They organize and declutter their homes because when they have less and things get messy, there's less to put away. It's as simple as that. So even now when my home gets messy and I look at my countertops, I see things, but I also see things that have a home. And I'm like, oh, that brush goes in that drawer over there. Those hair ties go in that hair bow drawer over there. If my daughter has schoolwork, she has a schoolwork drawer. If she has artwork, we have an artwork drawer. We have methods and systems that work for our family now that make our lives easier. It's easier for us to keep up with it because we know what's working for us or we know where things go. It is impossible to do this in one day. It's impossible to do it in a week. What is possible is deciding you want to make a change and doing just a teeny bit at a time. And also, if you don't want to do it on your own, then don't hire me. And I would be so happy to talk you through it. I was talking to someone today and they were like, oh, I hate that I have to trick my brain into cleaning, but sometimes I invite people over just so that I will get things done. And I'm like, okay, but if that works, why not praise yourself for that? You know what works. You know that you have a solution. What is bad about that? 1, you get to hang out with awesome people. 2, you have a clean home. 3, you still have a clean home the next day. So I feel like it's a win-win-win situation here. Before I leave today, I want to reinforce the fact that you can praise yourself for these little wins. And that's really the last step to all of this is congratulating yourself for these little things that you're doing. Because they're not little things. It adds up. And it's pretty amazing what it adds up to. One of the articles I linked below talks about executive function and how we can improve our executive function skills with joy and with praise. It's literally written by people who know what they're talking about, which is why I linked some articles down there. So don't just take my word for it, take the expert's word for it. In addition to that, you can't treat ADHD from a place of shame or blame. That's another quote that I got from one of the articles, and I love it. Because every time I talk to someone who has been shamed for having ADHD or is shaming themselves, do you think that they're actually living their best life? Absolutely freaking not, because guess what we do with our darn brains is we take it on a train ride down to a place that we don't want to live in. But we do that to ourselves. Praise yourself. Please do that. And procrastination, putting it off and putting it off, it really comes from a place of ambiguity. If you don't know what you don't know, that serves as a roadblock. I've got 6 takeaways for you from this episode today, so let's talk about them. Number 1, I never learned how to let go. So if you also never learned how to let go, give yourself some grace as you begin to learn. It's okay if you're a newbie at this. It's okay if it's overwhelming. It's okay if it feels emotional to let go of things that you never thought you'd have to make a decision on. It's okay if you can't do 15 minutes. It's okay if you only do 5. I just want to remind you that it's okay if this is new for you because it's new for so many of us. Number 2, selling stuff is not always a solution. I say this a lot because I did it a lot. And I tried to sell stuff in between working my corporate job, in between taking care of my children and taking care of my household. It is like another part-time job. In addition to that, you have to store all of your items in a specific space unless you have it scattered all over your house, depending on how organized you are. When I was selling things, I wanted to recoup some of the costs that I had from all of the money I had spent on these items. What helped me understand that it's okay if I don't is 1, time. Time is so valuable to me right now. I value my time over making an extra dollar on these items. I value the time that I put into my business over the amount of time I would spend selling these items on Facebook. You know, it's crazy too. I have to constantly remind myself of that. What I'm really trying to say though is it's okay to let it go without selling it. You already spent the money. The money's already gone. And so you have the same amount of money now as you did when the item was in your house, taking up space. And a lot of the times, those items taking up space, it feels so much better to just get them out of your house without putting another thing on your to-do list than it does to add more stuff to your to-do list. Number 3, the first step to organizing is decluttering. Decluttering is taking away the stuff that does not elevate your life right now in this moment. I don't care about a year from now. I don't care about, oh, well, this might happen one day. Nope. Think about what is your rule when it comes to decluttering. I'm simplifying it a lot with what I'm saying right now. And that's part of what I teach. There's a lot of, like the Marie Kondo method of, does this bring you joy? That doesn't work for every item. Because you could say, well, this might bring me joy in the future, 3 years from now. It doesn't bring me joy right now. But what if I need this little tiny piece of wood? There's all kinds of little things that we can decide to keep things for. But decluttering and understanding how to do it in the best way for you is so incredible. I recommended the book Decluttering at the Speed of Life. I absolutely love it and highly recommend it. Number 4, the clutter in my head often resembles the clutter in my home. I know if I'm having a tough time with something, I actually look around and see what my home looks like. And I check in with myself, is this affecting me right now? Is this affecting me in a negative way, in a positive way? What is going on around me? And oftentimes there's a direct correlation. I've also noticed when my kids are playing and they're making a mess, sometimes we have to check in with ourselves and just say, this is okay. We're not in the position where everything has to be in the right space every single moment. We're in the position where we want our kids to have a home that they can play in and feel like this is their home too, but where everything also has a space so it's easier to clean up. Number 5, start small. Small. The smaller the task, the easier it's going to be. Research shows that people with ADHD have executive function issues, which means that it's easy for us to see the big picture. It's harder for us to break it up into smaller tasks. So when you think about decluttering your whole home, holy smokes, that's a big project. But when you think about setting a timer for 5 minutes and, throwing away 5 pieces of trash, whatever you decide to do, that is manageable. That is something you can actually do in 5 minutes. I know that sounds so small, but if you did that every single day for 365 days, that adds up. It's the small changes that add up to the biggest life changes. And number 6, draw invisible blinders. That is one of my favorite things. When I'm starting a task, I give myself boundaries and rules to follow. And so if I'm decluttering a space in my laundry room, that is the only space I'm allowed to be in. If I have to take something out of that space, I walk away, I put that item where it goes, and then I come back. I follow a couple groups too about organizing with ADHD. And one of them said that they actually put a bag for all the stuff that needs to leave the room, and then they'll empty the bag when they leave the room after the decluttering happens. My only concern with that is sometimes those bags can become doom bags, right? Didn't organize, only move bags that could stay in a bag for a very long time. We are certainly known to do that. Regardless, you are so capable of organizing, and I'm so glad that you tuned in today. I'm so excited for September and the new episodes coming up. I can't wait to see your podcast reviews, and I'll see you next Monday. And that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of Organizing an ADHD Brain. Remember, your ADHD can be super powerful, and with the right tools and strategies, you can truly thrive. Do you feel like you could benefit from some personalized guidance in managing your ADHD and creating a life that works for you? I offer coaching sessions to help you declutter your space, manage your time more effectively, and achieve your goals. Ready to take the next step? Click the link in the show notes to schedule a free consultation call with me. We can discuss your unique needs and see if coaching is a good fit for you. Before we go, I want to share a quick shout out to my friend Perry's amazing business, Remedy Bath. Remedy Bath is a small batch skincare company that creates luxurious, handcrafted products to help you relax and unwind. They're especially known for their incredible CBD bath bombs and direct pain cream. If you're looking to treat yourself or find some relief from aches and pains, head over to remedybath.co and use the code MEGBATHCO, MEGBATHCO, for a special discount. Want to take your ADHD journey even further? Consider supporting the show on Patreon. Your contributions help me create more content, invest in better equipment, and reach even more listeners. Visit the Patreon link in the show notes to learn more. As always, the content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. I am not a doctor or medical professional. Please consult with your healthcare provider regarding any specific questions or concerns you may have. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember, your brain is amazing, and you got this.